Hello, welcome to U.S. History up to 1877. This is History 1301, Section 129. My name is Alfonso R. Lopez, and I will be your instructor for this class this fall semester. Now, what we're going to be doing in this video presentation is to go over the syllabus, since the syllabus really explains everything that you need to know about this course in terms of the course requirements, the course content, what we're going to cover, the method of instruction, how you're going to be learning this material, what will be your weekly responsibilities in terms of reviewing and learning this material. We're also going to talk about exams, how exams are going to be formatted, what is the structure of the exam, how you're going to prepare for it, and so on. And we'll talk about course assignments. There's going to be one major course assignment that is due towards the end of the semester, December 1st. And we're also going to be talking about extra credit assignments. Those are not mandatory, those are optional, but again, there's also an opportunity here for everybody to improve on their grades by earning extra points towards their exams. Of course, we'll talk about all of that in this video presentation. So this is a very crucial video presentation that is similar to the first day of class. This is for example, when you take a face-to-face course, this is equivalent to meeting the instructor the first day of class, and of course the instructor goes over the syllabus and it explains how the class is going to be organized, what are the major assignments, the exams, how you're going to prepare for them, and the grading and so on again. So this is a very, very important video recording that I highly suggest that you go over this material as thoroughly as possible. If you want to take notes, of course, that will help. And everything that you need to know really to prepare and not only pass this class, but to excel in this class is going to be provided here in this video. So I highly recommend that you go over entirely the entire presentation, which is going to span anywhere between 50 minutes to an hour or so, again, give and take. This is what I usually take in a face-to-face class whenever we meet for the first time, the first day of class. This is the syllabus day, if you will. Okay, now having said that, now let's turn our attention to the syllabus. And of course, this is located on Blackboard. Blackboard is going to be the main platform of this course. This is where you're going to be receiving the instruction and where you're going to be submitting all the assignments and exams as well. So let's turn our attention then to Blackboard. And as soon as you open the main page for this course, this is what you're going to see initially. Again, is really taking you to the announcement page. And so far, I have posted one announcement, an announcement that I have already emailed to you. So that means that every announcement that I post on Blackboard, I'm going to send an email announcement to you for your information, meaning that while it is, of course, your responsibility to be visiting this course on a weekly basis for important announcements and such, I will be posting announcements whenever, for example, I'm sending you a video lecture. I'm going to let you know that this week you're supposed to be reviewing this video lecture, for example. Or when there's going to be an exam coming up, I'm also going to let you know. I'm going to post an announcement about the exam and email it to you, or whenever the major assignment due at the end of the semester is going to be due, I'm also going to remind you again. So every time I post an announcement, you'll be informed about that. You'll receive an email from me. Okay, so the first announcement concerns the this video presentation is titled Class Introduction, which is really like an orientation, so to speak, for this course, and is going to be posted on the very top of this menu column on the left. When you here when you see here class introduction, it is in that link that this video is going to be located. Okay, you click on there again, and the video will be posted there by Monday, the first day of the semester, the first day of class, August the 21st. Okay, so now in this menu column, what you're going to see is a series of links. Those are the major links for this course. And just below the class introduction link, you're going to find a link titled syllabus. If you click on that, you will be taken to the syllabus page. So I wanted to make sure that the syllabus is going to be posted entirely there. So it will be easily accessible to you for you to read and review. Of course, if you want to download a copy of the syllabus, I have provided the Word doc. Again, it's provided right here on the very top of that page. If you want to actually save it on your computer and so on, or print it, I mean, that's all fine. But now let's go over the syllabus. And once again, this is a very, very important document that is going to provide everything that you need to know for knowing how to identify the major components of the course and how to navigate the Blackboard page as well, in terms of where the materials are located and where you're supposed to be uploading the assignments as well. Now, let's start from the very top. Again, this is U.S. History 1301, Section 129. So this is the first half of U.S. history that goes all the way to 1877. My name is Alfonso R. Lopez. I will be your instructor for this class this semester. And the fastest and easiest way to reach me is via email. Okay, my email is listed there, you can see in blue. And I will be responding. My policy is that Monday to Friday, you will be receiving a response from me within a 24-hour period. I mean, if you send me an email, let's say Monday morning, more than likely that same day you will receive a response. But if you send it, in the afternoon or in the evening, it will be the next day. It's a 24-hour, just give and take. Again, 24-hour period. During the weekends, however, I might take 48 hours to respond. So if you send an email, let's say Saturday morning, I might or might not respond within that 24-hour period, but for sure, you'll receive a response from me by Monday morning. Again, by Monday morning, you'll receive a response. Okay? That is my policy for emails. Now, there's an ACC, of course, policy that states that all electronic or all communication between the college and the students, in this case the faculty, the instructor, and the students, must take place through the official college electronic resources. In this case, we're talking about the ACC email account. So what that means is that if you're going to send me an email for anything concerning the grading, the class, the lectures, and so on, please use your ACC account as opposed to your private email account. So I'm not going to be responding to your private email account. So if you want a prompt response from me, please make sure you're actually sending your messages through the official ACC electronic resources. Okay? In terms of class meetings, of course, there's none due to the fact that this is an online asynchronous course, which has no designated class meetings for real-time instruction. And it's something that I'm going to actually discuss in just a few moments. Now, in terms of textbook, there is a required text for this course, and it's this one right here. It's titled Reading American Horizons. Primary Sources for U.S. History in a Global Context, Volume 1. So there's, of course, Volume 1 and Volume 2, due to the fact that 1302, the second part of U.S. history that starts from 1877 onwards, again, has a whole different volume, Volume 2. But again, this is the first half, so you need Volume 1. Make sure you're buying the 4th edition of this text, because this textbook is going to be used primarily and exclusively for completing a course assignment that is due on December 1st. So why do you need this textbook? Is because you need to complete this assignment. So what that means is that this textbook is not really a standard textbook per se, that in which you read a narrative of events, of historical events about U.S. history. Instead, what this textbook contains is a collection of primary sources or primary documents. What that is that those are documents that were generated by historical actors themselves. So no historian has intervened yet, in other words, to produce a textbook about those documents, and it has a narrative of that. But rather, this is just a collection, excerpts, if you will, of documents that were generated by very important figures in U.S. history. So you'll read directly from their thoughts and their voices, again, about their ideas and emotions whenever they were, creating history, of course. They can be, excerpts from memoirs or excerpts from letters or newspaper, articles, a speech, for example, that was pronounced by a president or a legislator, and so on. Things of that sort. Those are the primary documents. In other words. Okay, so I have selected, I'm going to talk about this assignment down the line, of course, but I have selected a series of documents for you to read and answer some questions, again, that are due at the end of the course. So this is the reason why do you need this textbook, okay? And it's a very thin one. And this is, I believe that new might be about $20, $24, give and take. So this is the only financial investment you're going to be making, again, in this course in terms of textbook. Again, you're not going to be spending, hundreds of dollars to take this course. It's only $20, $25, that is to say, because it's a very thin, again, booklet, if you will, which is the companion to the actual textbook that we're not going to be using in this course. We're not going to be using the actual textbook. This is the companion to the textbook. And the companion, you need to get it in order to complete the assignment. I will discuss the assignment once we get into that, to that section. Where to get it? Well, as far as I'm concerned, I was informed that this textbook is sold at the ACC Highland bookstore. That is the campus that actually sells this book, again, the Highland campus bookstore. Please be advised that the bookstores, the ACC bookstores, do not hold on to those texts for the entirety of the semester. Okay? So if you wait until, let's say, October or November to buy this textbook at the Highland bookstore, again, is probably not going to be there. Because what usually happens is that after 6, maybe 7 weeks, once the semester starts, the ACC bookstores return any books that they did not sell within those very first 6 or 7 weeks of classes, again. So, I mean, they return the textbooks to the vendor, that is to say. Okay, so, if you wait until late October, early November, more than likely that book is not going to be there. So, even though this is an assignment that is due December 1st, I suggest that you try getting this textbook as quickly as possible, within maybe the first 2 or 3 weeks. More than likely you're going to be able to actually get it at the Highland bookstores. If you wait long enough, if for some reason, you decide to wait until, let's say, early October and the book is no longer there, you're going to have to actually get this book from an online vendor like Amazon or Barnes and Noble, and they carry it, of course. But the thing is that it takes about a week or so to receive the book. So that's another, again, factor you have to contemplate, and that is the time factor. Buying the book that late in the semester, waiting for about a week to get it, and then having just a few days or just a couple of weeks to do the assignment, which is 25% of the final grade. I don't recommend doing that again. So why don't just try getting this book in September. Let us just say September is just a good time frame. Okay. All right. Now, as I said, this is an online asynchronous course, meaning that it's a course delivered fully online without any designated class meetings for real-time instruction, the way it is conducted in a synchronous class, for example. So this is a very flexible course format that allows students to craft, to tailor their own schedule and review the material in their own time, because of course, it is understandable. Some of you might have other responsibilities and duties, family-wise, or work arrangements that might be difficult to set. For example, a schedule to review this material in the mornings or in the afternoons, etc. Some of you might be reviewing the material during the evening time, and so on. Again, so it's very flexible in that you can tailor your own schedule. You can be reviewing this material during the weekend, and so on. That's fine. But as I will explain, there has to be a certain pace and rhythm, on a weekly basis, that you have to be reviewing this material on a weekly basis in order to avoid accumulating all of those video lectures that you have to be watching again, and pretty much leaving everything for the end and trying to pretty much watch everything during a weekend. Again, it's just very tiring to be reviewing so much material in such a short period of time. So if I were you, I'll just set some time aside every week at whatever time, of course, and be watching, of course, the video lectures. I'm going to explain that once we get into the mode of instruction, the mode of learning as well. What is the recommended, method for learning this material? Again, pretty much, watching 2 video lectures per week. We're going to be talking about that again once we get there. Now, the course description, what this course is going to be about. So this is the first half of U.S. history. U.S. history is pretty much divided into 2 parts. The surveys, that is to say, that everybody must take, the 1301, 1302. Those are the surveys, the U.S. history surveys, that every student, regardless of major, again, must actually take. Okay, they're part of the basic courses, if you will. The first part of U.S. history survey course deals with U.S. history from the very early origins, if you will, of this region, going back into the ancient world. Again, we're going to take a dive into the ancient world and looking at, for example, the Native American groups, the indigenous peoples, if you will, of the Americas that not only inhabited North America, the region that today is the United States, but we're going to also take a look at the most advanced civilizations of the American continent that flourished before the arrival of the Europeans. Meaning, we're going to look at, for example, very briefly, by the way, again, this is just a survey, of course, but, we have to become acquainted with what kind of cultures, what kind of societies developed in the American continent before the arrival of Columbus in 1492, and look at one of the major contributions, again, of those civilizations to the world, looking at the Olmec, the Maya, the Toltec, and of course looking at North America proper, some of the Native American groups of North America as well. We're going to look at also in the ancient world at another civilization that was also key, fundamental for the formation of the United States, and that is Europe. Now, this is not going to be an extensive, analysis and presentation of European history, but we also need to become acquainted with the European background of the United States. The United States has a multiplicity of different backgrounds, ethnic, backgrounds, for example. One is the Native American, of course, but the other is the European. The European background. So we're also going to look at Europe, just the mother cultures of Europe, the Greeks, the Romans, and then looking at the fall of the Roman Empire, the Middle Ages. Again, it's a survey. Of course, we're just surveying, going over, if you will, the major historical times and moments of European history. And then, of course, the age of discovery, how at some point, starting in the 12, 13, early 1400s, the Europeans are beginning to initiate this process of exploration and discovery. They're testing navigation systems in the Mediterranean Ocean, some of them in the Atlantic Ocean, and they're beginning to embark upon long distance trade, inland distance trade, with the Far East, the spice trade, for example. We're going to look at that. And it was precisely, the need to accelerate the pace of trade that pushed the Europeans to begin a technological revolution in navigation, build larger ships that they used in order to find new trade routes to tap into the spices of the Far East. And it is in this process, of course, that Columbus comes into the scene. He's trying to actually find a shortcut to Asia, and in that voyage towards the Far East by sailing west, he stumbled upon, of course, a massive continent that was, for the most part, unknown to the rest of the world. The American continent, of course, called the New World. And we're going to look at the contact, the encounters between the Europeans and, of course, the Native Americans. Of course, this has to be assessed in this course. The encounters, the interactions between the Europeans, whether those were Spanish or Portuguese, the early forerunners, if you will, of the age of discovery of America. And later on, of course, we're looking at the French, Dutch, and British who are exploring North America, coming into contact with the Native American groups that inhabited this region. Of course, this course is also going to look at the process of early settlement and early colonization. We have to look at the reasons, the factors that pushed Europeans out of Europe to come in great numbers to the New World and settled in the New World and start forming communities and eventually colonies, of course. And in doing that, we're going to look at, for example, one of the perhaps most important factors that pushed the Europeans out was economics. Of course, Europeans trying to, get additional land that it was lacking in Europe. That was one, of course, Europeans looking for more land, of course, for them to settle and form their own farms and so on. It's true, but more than that, it was, as I mentioned a moment ago, international trade. We see the beginning of an international economy during this time called mercantilism that was tying together all of the continents of the world for the purpose of engaging in commercial exchange. We see the massive exchange of commodities and luxury products, not only spices, but eventually we're looking at things like, for example, sugar as well, silks. And of course, the products of the New World are also going to become part of the equation. Things like coffee, tobacco, sugar is going to be grown in the New World. And of course, certain minerals that are going to be extracted, like silver and gold, they're going to be traded virtually everywhere around the world. Again, so one of the reasons why Europeans were coming to the New World, something we're going to get at, of course, was economics. The need to set up enterprises for the purpose of extracting valuable goods, valuable resources from the Americas in order to trade them for other products, particularly gold, around the world. So again, we see the commercial enterprises flourishing, plantations, mining, for example, trading companies. We're going to get to look at all this process, that the process of European colonization in the New World was driven to such a large extent by the need for trade. There was an economic, of course, incentive there. But also, Europeans were pushed out of Europe for other reasons other than economics, and that is religion. There were, of course, problems in Europe dealing with religious conflict. The split of the Catholic Church in the early 1500s. We see the rise of the Protestant movement, the Protestant Reformation. Those were actually Catholics that left the Catholic Church in protest. They wanted to reform the Christian Church. And we see, of course, tensions, eventually wars over religion in Europe. Protestants and Catholics were at war. And that was another incentive for a number of Protestant groups to leave this heated and convoluted climate of persecution in Europe to come to the New World in order to establish their ideal religious communities, that how they believed in religious community should live. So we see like a laboratory where Europeans were experimenting in forming new societies, new religious communities, religious societies in the New World. In fact, many of the British colonies that were formed in North America, like Massachusetts, Plymouth, for example, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Rhode Island, were actually just like laboratories in which religious communities were trying to form the ideal society, a religious society that in their eyes was going to be ideal, perfect, in other words. So religion was another force, another historical force that intervened in the early formation of the United States. Again, we're going to get to see that as well. Then this course is going to look at the colonial period. And the colonial period is not just settlement and colonization. We're going to get to see now colonial society, how North American, the British colonies of North America are going to be developing again over time. Let's say from 1640 all the way to the 1760s, there is a process of colonial formation, if you will, something we're going to get to see that. In there, we're going to get to see, of course, very important factors that came together to start shaping colonial society. Very early on, for example, we're going to get to see the slave trade. Okay, so the transatlantic slave trade. This is a trade that was conducted in a triangular fashion between Europe, Africa, and America, if you will. Okay, there's going to be trade between, once again, Europe, Africa, and America in a triangular fashion, which involved not only the trading of commercial goods like coffee, tobacco, rum, sugar, and the like, but also the trading of slaves as well. Again, so we're going to see the massive migration or importation, if you will, of African slaves into the New World. The vast majority went into the Caribbean islands and South America, places like Brazil, but there's going to be also a significant number of slaves imported by the British in the North American British colonies, particularly the southern colonies, like Virginia, for example, Georgia, the Carolinas, and so on. We're going to get to see that, of course. We are also going to see the interaction between the African slaves, of course, and the colonists, and also the Native Americans. Because, again, we see the early beginnings of a melting pot here. Again, in that there is, of course, a colonial society in formation, if you will, by not only English settlers arriving from England to settle, but also, again, a multiplicity of other groups, the Native Americans that were already here, the African slaves that are being brought, and also more European immigration that is taking place from different parts of Europe. There's a great number of Germans, there's Scottish, Irish, of course, immigrants that are arriving in great numbers as well, and they're going to become part of this diverse, society on the rise. We're going to get to see that. We're going to get to see change as well. This is a very important and crucial analytical point in this course, is analyzing change. What causes change? In other words, how colonial society was changing during this time. One of the changes, of course, I just mentioned was immigration. But also there are other changes that are taking place, and that is in the realm of religion. The religious society that I mentioned, that came to establish the ideal societies, are also going to change as a result of, for example, the colonies doing rather well, the formation of enterprises, the formation of international trade, the availability of land to the West, and so on. All of those factors came together for colonial society to start changing, and people began to abandon gradually their religious traditions in favor of more materialistic values, if you will. We're going to get to see that. And of course, looking at the reaction again of conservatives against those people, the people that were changing and abandoning religion. We're going to get to see things like, for example, the witch hunts, of Salem in 1692. The Salem witch hunts was an indicator that Puritan society in Massachusetts was changing, was becoming more liberal, more modern. And we're going to see a reaction against that by the witch hunts, of course. So that was really, again, a symptom of change, the witch hunts. We're going to see the conversion of the African slaves to Christianity, what kind of Christian ideas the slaves form of their own. And also the attempt to Christianize or convert the Native American population, again, by the European settlers. There was an effort to convert them to Christianity as well. We're going to get to see that as well. Eventually, the colonial period is going to close with the coming of the independence movement, the American Revolution. Again, we're going to get to see why the 13 colonies at some point at the end of the colonial period decided that it was in their best interest to free themselves from the mother country, Great Britain. We're going to get to see the causes for the revolution and eventually the actual revolution itself and the outcome. Okay, how the 13 colonies eventually will become independent, and we're going to see the formation of the United States. So this is, again, now moving our course into the national period when the United States becomes a nation. It's no longer a series of colonies, but rather those colonies are now independent. They're forming a union. They're coming together. They have a covenant, a constitution that they create in 1787 to bind the states together under a national government. And we're going to get to see, of course, all of the historical and philosophical factors that came together to form the United States. What were the ideas of the Constitution? What is the structure of the U.S. government, of course, that was created, how it was supposed to work, and looking at the major challenges that the United States faced once it was formed as an independent nation. We're going to get to see in great detail some of the challenges that the United States faced. Mainly moving westward. There was a desire by Americans to move westward. But again, there was plenty of obstacles in that regard. And also to conduct international trade, something that was also obstructed during that time, that led to the War of 1812, another war with Great Britain. Again, we're going to get to see that in great detail. In the national period, we're also going to look at another very important and critical event that shaped the United States in a very significant way, and that was the Industrial Revolution. There's going to be a whole theme or topic devoted to the Industrial Revolution that is going to look at the industrialization of the northern part of the country, the beginning of factories, for example, a capitalist economy based on wage labor, for example, and how women are beginning to enter the workforce in small numbers. But nonetheless, we see social changes in terms of women now entering the workforce and becoming more and more self-reliant and independent and so on. So we're looking at a series of changes that are transpiring in the United States as a result of the Industrial Revolution, which it's not just, again, changing the society of the northern states, and they're becoming more industrialized. People are now living in cities, for example, and they're earning wages and so on. It's not just that, but also the southern states are also changing in that they're becoming more and more entrenched in plantation agriculture. The southern states were the ones growing the cotton for the northern industries. So we're going to see the massive expansion of cotton agriculture, plantations, and of course with it, the system of labor that comes with it, which is slavery. We see the expansion of slavery in the U.S. South. At the end of the course, we're going to examine the Civil War. Again, this is going to be, of course, one of the most dramatic moments in U.S. history, the split of the United States along geographical lines, the industrialized states of the North, and the agricultural states of the South devoted to cotton agriculture and the use of slave labor were becoming more and more conflicting in terms of priorities. What kind of economic system the country should have. Should we have more factories? Should we have more plantations? Should we pay people for their labor? Meaning, should we have a wage labor system or a slave labor system? So again, the fact that the country was being divided in that fashion, there were two different economic systems working simultaneously in the United States, and they were growing apart and they were in competition with one another, led to a rupture in 1860, producing the War of the States, the Civil War, the northern states against the southern states over the issue of slavery. We're going to examine that in great depth. And of course, the process of Reconstruction, how the South was ultimately defeated in 1865, and we see the process of rebuilding the country politically, liberating millions of slaves, providing citizenship rights to the freed population, and voting rights and civil rights. All of that is going to be examined very closely. Something, again, that stops in 1877. By 1877, we see the reunification of the country once again. Okay, that's where, again, our story ends in this first half of U.S. history. Now, I want to mention also that my style of teaching is one in which I teach history from a global perspective, whether I'm teaching U.S. history, Texas history, Mexican American history, or every course that I have taught in the past. I teach that course from a global perspective. What that means is that while I'm paying attention to the history of the United States, we're going to be looking at events that are happening here at home. We're also going to be paying attention to events happening elsewhere and how those events intersect or interconnect with events happening here. Because no country really develops in perfect isolation from the rest of the world. All countries are influenced by their surroundings. So this is exactly what I'm getting at, is that while I'm teaching U.S. history, you're going to be learning significantly also from other civilizations that contributed to the development of the United States. For example, Native American civilizations I just mentioned. In this course, you're going to be learning also about the Native Americans, their cultures, their societies, their religions, and so on. You're also going to be learning about European civilization. I mentioned we're going to have to take a glance at Europe, because the Europeans that came during the early colonial period brought their own culture from Europe. They brought ideas, whether those were political ideas, religious, scientific, philosophical ideas. They imported those into the United States, and those ideas are going to become part, again, of the United States eventually. I mentioned the African slave trade. So we also have to examine Africa. There will be a section devoted to African cultures and civilizations as well. Where the African slaves were coming from what region are they coming from? Was slavery practiced in Africa? The answer is yes. We're going to get to see how slavery was practiced in Africa and so on. So you will become very acquainted also with African culture and society as well in this process. So that's what I mean about the global perspective. So, even though this is a U.S. history course, you'll kind of sense, once you get into the lectures, that this is also a kind of world civilizations course simultaneously. You're learning about U.S. history, but in the process, you're also learning about other civilizations as well that were key in the formation of the United States. I also, in my style of teaching, try to step out of the field of history to enrich my understanding of the people that we're studying, because that's what history is. History is really studying people. We're studying human beings. And in order to really understand history or human beings, we need to get into their mindset as much as possible. And for me, one of the ways to do that is by, for example, borrowing methods from other fields like psychology. I use psychoanalysis. I try to psychoanalyze people as much as I can. Where people were coming from, what kind of background, where they were raised, what kind of ideas were instilled upon them, whether we're talking about Abraham Lincoln, or we're talking about the founding fathers, or we're talking about the Puritans, or we're talking about, the Native Americans. Doesn't matter. The psychological factor, their mindset, is something that I'm very interested in, how they saw the world around them. Did they see the world through religion? Did they saw the world through science? Did they saw the world, in a combination of both? Did they saw the world as magical? Did they saw the world as, as a wondrous, benign place, or as a place full of fear and dangers, etc.? This is what I'm getting at. I'm trying to get into people's mindsets. So I borrow, again, from other fields like psychology, political science. I borrow from anthropology to look at human cultures and religion and so on. So it's going to be very rich in that regard. It's not just going to be listing, dates and names for you to memorize, but rather it's more analytical. I'm trying to analyze, again, people in the process. All right, so now how you're going to be learning this material, the mode of learning. How are you going to be learning this material that I just explained in the past 15 to 20 minutes? I've mentioned already that the method of instruction is through video lectures. They're already recorded. They're already posted on Blackboard. Again, if you want to locate them, they're under course content. Again, there's a section right here, course content. And there's here a link titled Instructional Materials. You click on there, and it will take you to this page where you find two folders. And those two folders really contain all the instruction, all the material that you must review for this course. Okay? In that link, Instructional Materials, again, is going to take you to the two folders where all the instruction is located. Mainly the top folder, the recorded video lectures. When you click on there, the recorded video lectures, all my lectures have been recorded already by using the software that I'm using here. It is the same software, by the way. And those are the same lectures that I actually provide in a face-to-face class, in campus. So I recorded all my lectures. They're identical. I mean, of course, when I'm teaching in class, of course, I do have, moments where I remember information, or there are ideas that come to me and I elaborate further. So in a face-to-face class, of course, there's room for expansion and improvement, of course, because again, there is this element of inspiration, if you will. So there's, of course, it's not necessarily that I recite the same material when I teach face to face, but the structure, the essence, if you will, the core, if you will, of the lectures are already recorded here, and they're organized around themes or topics. You find 9 folders right here. You find them. They're going by number, and those 9 folders, each one of them is a theme. For example, we start with the Native American history, culture, and religion. If you click on that folder, you're going to find 3 video lectures. 3. And every folder has 3 lectures, by the way, not just this one. Every single folder that is a theme or a topic of the course has 3 lectures, and they span for about an hour and 20 minutes. It's give and take the average of a face-to-face class in campus, again. So the idea is that you have to be watching 2 lectures per week. Every week, I'm going to let you know which lectures you're supposed to be watching that week. I'm going to be sending you emails every Tuesday and Thursday. Every Tuesday and Thursday, you will be receiving an email from me saying, oh, this week we are looking at Native American history, culture, and religion. Please watch session 1. And then on Thursday, I'll send you another email saying you're supposed to be watching session 2 of this topic. And so on, one by one. So this is only to inform you where we're at, in that week, and that it is recommended that you are keeping up with the lectures on this pace and rhythm. You don't want to be accumulating all of those lectures and then watch them later on, and then be watching, hours and hours and hours of lectures in one weekend. As I said, again, it's not practical. It is not recommended, of course. So just try to set some time aside every week to watch 2 lectures per week. The ones that I'm going to inform you which are the lectures to watch, of course. Your responsibility is to watch them as thoroughly as possible, take notes, and those notes are going to be used to answer the questions of the exam. So yeah, you don't need to be reading articles or books or doing outside readings at all in this course. All you need to do is just concentrate on the lectures, take notes, and then use that material to answer the questions. Okay, we're going to be talking about the exam again just in a few moments. So going back to the mode of learning, as I mentioned, the lectures are derived from a multiplicity of sources. This is one of the reasons that I don't use a textbook, because there's not going to be a textbook that is going to give you all of the material that I'm covering. In other words, I don't just, get a textbook, read a chapter, and then recite it to you, in a lecture. I mean, what is the purpose for that? Okay. In that case, I'm just, letting you know that you're supposed to be reading this chapter, and that's all you need to do. Again, there's no need to receive a repetitious information. My lectures are compiled by a wide array of different sources, books and articles, for example, that I have read over 25 years, again, of me inside of studying in academia and getting my degrees, my master's and PhD and so on, and further readings I've done ever since I got my doctorate, of course. So again, it's really a synthesis, if you will, of many different kinds of sources. And then what I've done is that I have used that information to create certain themes and give you pretty much a thin synthesis of that theme in 3 lectures, for example. Again, so they're coming from many different sources, once again. Now, the lectures are also not given randomly or chronologically. In other words, when I lecture, I don't just lecture about, one thing one day, and then the next day I change the theme, and then I jump, back and forth in the timeline. And it's not like that. It's thematic, meaning that I have actually crafted 9 major themes that, for me at least, are crucial for understanding U.S. history. Those are the major themes that really can bring to light, if you will, all of the different aspects of American culture and society, at least up to 1877. Okay? And they're listed here. Again, those are actually the titles of the folders of the recorded video lectures. And they're grouped in blocks of 3. In other words, there are 3 themes in part 1. Part 1 deals with the ancient world, all the way to the Age of Discovery. We cover 3 themes: the Native Americans, the Europeans, and the role of religion in the development of British colonies. We cover that, and then we have the first exam. Then we move into the next historical era, part 2, the colonial period. We cover another 4 topics: the 4th, 5th, and 6th, the slave trade, colonial society in transition, and then the American Revolution, and then we have the second exam. And then the last historical era is the national period up to the Civil War, and we're covering the birth of the American Republic, the Industrial Revolution, and then at the end the Civil War and Reconstruction. Okay? And then we have the final exam. And the final exam is only gonna look at the last 3 topics, by the way. Okay? Now, having said that, now let's talk about the exams, because so far, again, we have talked about the method of instruction, how I'm actually organizing this material, and so on. And I mentioned just briefly exams. There are 3 exams, as I mentioned. Each is worth 25% of the final grade. And the way they're going to be structured is that, well, first and foremost, they're not going to be given on a specific day. I mean, for you to actually, take the exam on a specific day, and then you have a certain time limit to do it, and so on. This is more like a writing assignment. You have plenty of time. It's about 5 weeks for each exam. So you have about 5 weeks to complete the first exam, and then after that, another 5 weeks for the second exam, and then 5 weeks for the final. So this is something that you do at home, and you're doing along the way as you're watching the lectures. You can be working on the exam. Again, that's totally fine. You have, there is of course a due date, and once the due date comes along, I'm going to send you a reminder that there's a due date, and the first exam must be uploaded by September 28th, and so on. And it has to be uploaded by the due date, of course, but you have plenty of time to do it. Now, the format is that it consists of part 1 and part 2. There's 2 parts. Part 1 is the topic section, and the topic section asks you to choose one topic from a set of 2. Remember, we cover 3 topics per exam, but part 1, I selected 2 topics for you to choose from. You only choose one topic in part 1, and you address all the questions of that topic as fully as possible for 70 points. Now, the catch here is I'm giving you plenty of time to work on this, but the answers must derive exclusively from the lectures. So no outside sources are going to be allowed. So again, if for some reason you think, well, I'm just going to go online or maybe read a book, etc., and try to answer the questions, I didn't watch the videos, or maybe I did, but I'm not going to actually use that material, and so on, your work will be disqualified. As soon as I start reading something I did not lecture, and it's in the answer, again, that work will be disqualified. So try to avoid that, because there's no need for that. There's no need to be doing all this outside research, consult web pages and trying to get the information. You don't need that. In this course, the only way I can measure your learning that you have reviewed this material is if you have proved in the exams that you have reviewed this material, that you're responding to the questions by writing the ideas, the concepts, the analysis that I have provided. Otherwise, it's almost like you're taking this course, but you're not really reviewing the material. You're not really learning what the instructor has to offer, and you're just going online and trying to get information and put it there again. So that's not going to work. Every professor is going to teach you something. Whenever you take a class, you're receiving knowledge from that professor. Okay? That is very valuable to you. Whatever the instructor has to offer, whatever class you're taking, doesn't matter. It can be sociology, English, government, history, whatever, math, and so on. You're learning from that person, so it's important that you take that knowledge from the person. Is that contribution, that offering, if you will, to you, if you will. So please stay away from, refrain yourself, if you will, from using outside sources when answering the questions of the exam, because that is going to result in the disqualification. Also, there are students who transcribe my lectures by using software. So instead of them listening to the lecture, they use a software that is actually just, transcribing my voice and putting it into words. And then they turn in that information. There's 20, 30, 40 pages of information, and it's just my voice. I'm reading my own lecture, word for word. If I just go back to the video, it's like, well, no, this is not going to work out. Okay? So I'm not going to be grading a software. I'm not going to be grading a robot, in other words. I need to be grading you. So again, also refrain yourself from using those softwares when answering the questions of part 1. Part 2 is the key term section, and the key term section is derived from the third key topic. Remember, there are 3 topics that we cover. Part 1 looks at 2 topics, but you only choose one. And part 2 looks at another topic. There's a series of key terms that you need to address, and those key terms must be answered very thoroughly as well. It's not just identification. I'm actually looking for you to not only identify the key term, but to describe and explain as fully as possible. It's a very lengthy, if you will, answer for the key term for 30 points as well. Okay? Once you are through with the exam, then you upload it by the due date. Again, there's an upload section right here. It says submit work. Submit work, first exam, second exam, final exam. There's a report due. Of course, we're going to talk about that just next. And the extra credits. This is where you're supposed to be uploading all of this material, all the assignments and so on. Now, there's extra credit assignments, available to you, regardless of grade standing. There's, again, everybody's entitled to do them. There are 3 extra credit assignments. And each extra credit assignment can add up to 10 points to each exam. They're optional. They're not mandatory, once again. But this is a very good opportunity to increase your grade significantly. It's a whole letter grade you can increase in each exam. Where those extra credit assignments are located, again, under course content, there's a link titled Course Assignments. If you click on there, all the assignments for this course are listed here, all of them. First exam, second exam, final exam, the study questions report, and there's a folder that says extra credit assignments. You click on there, and you're going to find the instructions and the readings that you need to do if you decide to do the extra credit assignments. Again, a wonderful opportunity to increase your grade, of course. So your grades are not set in stone. You can always change them by improving those grades by doing those assignments. Now, as we approach the course assignment, there's one piece of information that we're required to put here in the syllabus, and that is that you have until November 16, to withdraw from this course, if you decide to do so. If there is, of course, an emergency, something out of your reach, that's understandable. Now, if you're deciding to just withdraw from the course because you skipped one of the exams because something happened, there was perhaps a changing work schedule, or maybe some family situation. Well, talk to me before you do so. Talk to me before you withdraw, so we can actually create some form of plan or arrangement for you to complete any missing work, before you decide to withdraw. In other words, I'm willing to work with you if you do the work, of course. If you're serious, if you're committed in finishing this course, if you want to earn a passing grade, this is what you want, despite the fact that you have, of course, challenging situations, well, talk to me. Again, we can actually work something out, in terms of, once again, doing the extra credits, or, providing a minor extension for an exam, and so on. Again, that is understandable. Otherwise, of course, you have until November 16th to withdraw. Okay. After that, you will remain in the course, whatever grade you earn. As I mentioned, there is a course assignment due at the end of the semester, is the study questions report, and this is where this book comes in, the study questions report. This is, again, the book that you're going to need in order to complete this assignment. I have selected 10 documents for you to read. They're very short reads. They're short readings. Your responsibility is to read that excerpt of the document and answer some questions. Again, where those documents are located, where are those questions, everything is provided here in the instructions in the syllabus. Again, it tells you the chapter, it tells you the page number, it tells you the title of the document, and also it tells you which questions to answer. One by one, all those 10 documents are listed here, their page number and so on, and the questions. The format that you must follow is you have to write the title of the document on top of the page, and then proceed to follow a question and answer format. Write the question and then the answer, question and then the answer. You move into a new document, well, write the title on top of the page, and then continue with the same procedure, again, one by one. Has to be double spaced, with a cover page. You must end up with a 10-page document. That means that the answers per document, all of the answers to the questions per document, must be at least one full page. So every time you're addressing one document, whether there are 2 questions or 3 questions, the answers for those questions for that document must be one full page. So you must end at the end of the day with a 10-page document. Okay. This is going to be 25% of your final grade and is due December 1st. Again, December 1st. Now, the grading looks as follows. Again, each exam and assignment is worth 25% of your final grade. First, second, final exam, 25% each. Study questions report, 25% each. Now, if you also consider doing the extra credit assignments, that can actually increase your grades, of course. Once we factor in those extra credit assignments, we have additional points to factor in. And of course, one last factor that I take into account is improvement and effort. Meaning that when I'm calculating grades at the end of the semester, I'm actually going over student by student their grades, and what I pay attention is if they were improving from the first to the second to the final exam. If their grades were increasing and they submitted one extra credit assignment, well, for me, that's a sign of commitment, effort, progress, improvement. And it has to be compensated. It has to be rewarded. So if you end up with an 88.75 grade average, and I saw major improvements and I saw effort in that regard, I'll give you the final push and I'll give you the A. On the other hand, if you end up with an 88.75, but I saw that you were decreasing, you started really, really well in the beginning of the semester, but then you started pretty moving downwards, over time, and, you ended up with an 88.78 or 75, etc. I mean, you have a B plus again. So just keep that in mind, that that your grades are not set in stone, using other metrics, to calculate grades as well. Okay, it's not that mechanical. At the end of the syllabus, you'll find important calendar dates for fall 2023. The first day of class, of course, the Labor Day, holiday is September 4th. The last day to drop a class or withdraw is November 16th. Then we have the Thanksgiving holiday, November 23rd to the 26th. And then the final exam week will be the week of December 4th to the 9th, of course. And the last page is going to deal with the week by week schedule. What topics we're covering week by week. This is something that I'm going to inform you anyways. I'm going to be sending you emails and so on, which videos you're supposed to be watching and so on. But it provides pretty much a very good outline of what we're covering on a week-to-week basis, as you can see here. Okay, it tells you when the first exam is due, September 28th. You have about 5 weeks to complete it. And then it tells you the second exam is due October 31st. And then the study questions report is due December 1st. And then when the final exam has to be submitted, December 6th as well. Okay? So this is in general terms, how we're going to proceed with this class. Once again, on the left side here, the course content, it tells you the instructional materials. This is where all the video recordings are posted that you're supposed to be watching across the semester. The course assignments, it gives you a list of all the major assignments that must be submitted at the end of the semester, with the exception of the extra credit assignments that are optional, of course. And of course, the submit work section is the section where you're supposed to be uploading all those works. Okay. This is all I have for you. I hope that you have received valuable guidance and orientation for how this course is going to be structured and conducted, that you have identified the major areas or sectors of the class, where to find the learning materials, and the due dates, the requirements, and so on. If you have any doubts, any concerns, any questions, please let me know. Email me once again, Monday to Friday, a 24-hour period. I will be responding in the weekends, 48 hours. And I will be responding again with a lengthy, of course, answer to your questions. Okay. Once again, my name is Alfonso R. Lopez. I will be your instructor for this class this semester. And I really hope that you're going to enjoy this class and then learn, new areas of U.S. history that perhaps you have not yet been exposed to, if you will. Religion, science, for example, technology, the environment, politics, philosophy. All of those areas are going to be explored in great detail, in this course. Okay. I'll send you the email announcement on Monday once this video is ready to be reviewed, and I hope for a great semester. Okay, this is all I have for you, and I'll see you then next week as I'm sending you the announcements. Thank you. Bye-bye.